Right. Happy New Year, Springs BOE. We're live and recording.
Happy New Year.
Thanks, LTV. Happy New Year to you too. Good evening, everybody. We were just in an executive session where we were going over some personnel and hiring. And at the moment, we are going to start a brief special meeting. Julie, if you could do roll call, please.
Sure. Barbara Dayton.
Here.
Tim Frazier.
Here.
Pat Braban. Eric Frederickson.
Here.
And Emma Field is absent.
All right, thank you. If we could rise to the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much. Got a quick 2 items on our agenda. Deb?
So the first item for the special meeting is a resignation of Robert Doyle, our business official, effective close of business today for a new position. And then we have Michael Henry coming back as an interim business official / treasurer on a part-time basis effective January 3rd. And not to exceed $45,000 for the remainder of the school year until which time a new business official is hired.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Any questions at this time? In that case, do I have a motion to move personnel items A and B to consent agenda?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you. Oh, all opposed? All right, thanks. And now do I have a motion to adjourn the special meeting?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Great, thanks. And do I have a motion to open our work session and budget discussion?
Motion.
Second? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Great. So we have a few items on our workshop this evening. We'll be talking about handbooks, about goals, our budget discussion, and the revised budget calendar, and there will be public commentary after each item that we're talking about. So let's go ahead and start with staff and parent handbooks. I know there was some talk about maybe work having been done over the summer, and we talked about this as we're getting the website together. So want to let us know where things stand, or?
Sure, so I'll give you a quick update and then I'll turn it over to Josh because he's been doing the lion's share of the work on that, thankfully. So we did start looking at the parent handbook and the staff handbook last summer. We were working with the STA leadership and getting some input about the staff handbook, and that sort of went on the back burner for a little bit. We'd like to get back to that, but the STA has asked for more time to look at it. For the staff handbook, one of the issues we came up against was how many details and how many human resources issues do we want covered in the staff handbook. In the past, the staff handbook has been very basic, and so without a full-time human resource person, it kind of got a little bit sticky in where are we at with procedures for some things, and then it opened up, it's more conversation, opened up more conversation. So we're working on that with the STA. That's the staff handbook. And then the parent handbook, we have the basic original edition that we had, plus a lot of input from others, but that was prior to getting new board members. That was prior to some shifts in the STA as well. So I think, and new parents as well. So we want to open that up to more stakeholders as well for more information and more. We want to know what people want, because in the day of the new website, it's not a handbook anymore. It used to be a handbook, right, and yes. How much use do we have for a handbook? We have use for information at your fingertips, but that's going to be all done on the website. So I think it kind of dovetails into what's going to be on the website and how we want that to be presented.
The days of a handbook.
It seems antiquated, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think a lot of our parents even are interested in that.
Yeah,
So
Okay.
is the parent handbook, as we're thinking about the website, we have these tabs at the house, at the top, we have, we do have students and we do have parents. So is that tab really the handbook? Because it will include the code of conduct, it will include where the other things are, so it's having an actual, as you say, a bound handbook. Is
Right.
that really the thing, or is it just putting all that information in one spot and we call it the handbook?
I'm going to turn it over to Josh. We've been looking at other schools and seeing what they've been doing as well, and.
Yeah, I think calling it like a parent resources page on the website or something like that could be a nice marriage of the two there, so to speak.
Right.
It's one of those things where I can only imagine getting a handbook every year and how often that ends up in the junk drawer in my house and I never see it again and that sort of thing versus how often I'm on my kids' school websites.
It seems to me there's a couple items that are really important to parents, like the calendar, like easy access to the calendar and see what the dates are. The other is just kind of a brief description of the staff or information of how to get a hold of staff.
A directory of some sort, yeah.
Right, and then, of course, the pages where parents have to sign off on certain things, like a code of conduct.
Sure.
Or something where they have to give permission for field trips or whatever else, if something along that line that parents knew they could go there very quickly and see those things. That would probably be the most tissue we get.
I would think so, and it's funny too, because I showed the current, the past iteration and the work I did on the parent handbook, and I kind of pared down some points and I added some stuff to other stuff so they would know what new programs were. And I showed that to some parents in the building. They're like, I would never, there's some things I would like to see that have access to and like information about, but a lot of this stuff, like I would just never even think to ask about it. It's like there was so much information within that document.
One of the pieces of feedback we got also were who to go to for what.
Yeah.
So if I'm a parent, what exactly does Ms. Cleary do as opposed to Mrs. Winter, as opposed to, like, who am I going to for what types of questions? So maybe some sort of a flow chart like that, besides how to get a hold of staff.
Should there be something with, our expectations of parents? Like, your child always needs to come to school prepared to do this or that.
That's
We would
actually
like
in
to
our
see
code of conduct.
Participate, in PTA, or we would like, parent involvement in this, that, and the other thing. Because I'm sure there are people who, we have a diverse school population, so maybe in other countries, parents aren't expected to do as much as here. So maybe, putting it out there that, okay, this is, kind of what we'd like to see parents do, what they do, make that, something like that available.
I wanted to ask, because I haven't been involved in the communications committee, but have you gotten any feedback from the communications committee, parents on that committee, what kinds of things they do want to see from the website that might actually be part of these tabs that we're talking about?
Yeah, we sort of got going with those tabs, and then the holidays came along.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling we'll probably be getting into that at our next meeting, which I forget when that is.
I think it's next week.
Next week.
I always believe in keeping it simple.
Yeah.
And only getting complicated if you have to, or, if it serves a certain purpose, but.
The communications aspect, I'm not on the committee. I know the committee, a lot of parents and a couple staff members. But then again, it's a select few parents that want to participate. But I know like the PTA is getting a huge show up nowadays, because they're meeting at a tavern. But if we could, maybe some communication be asked by the PTA meeting and talk to that committee. When there's, they're going to 20 people, I think, if we do that. We have 5, somebody from the committee to go to a PTA meeting and talk to them at a PTA meeting. Because not every parent can get involved. You're on a committee, you're on.
Yeah.
Sometimes people just have a voice and they're not there, and they're not here,
Right.
and not on LTV.
Well, we did give the parent, the parent resource tab was given to the PTA, and they were going to go over it at a meeting, right?
Yes.
Did we get any feedback on
Feedback,
that
no.
yet?
No, that's somebody reached out to me.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
That's a good idea. We'll just
We asked the
Just a follow-up.
student government
I wasn't
to
aware of
take a
that.
look at the student
Right,
page,
yes.
so.
Nothing back from the students either, but I will double
Okay.
back with them.
I kind of think about those handbooks too, as I've gone through them and seen, like, I mean, you could really get into the nitty gritty on how a school works and those things, or you could kind of look at it in broader strokes. So having that feedback from people of like, well, how much information do you really need? Or is it easier to like shoot an email off if you have something really specific about
Right.
how
I can
X,
say
Y, or
what
Z
we've heard
works?
so far is there was a tendency toward consolidation with that. So I think there is agreement there. I think it's a matter of what we want parents to know, that concentrated piece, and then there's probably a few things that they would like to, and we might be able to start there. The other thing that's nice about the website is it's fluid.
Right.
So that if we need to omit or add something later on, but to finalize that feedback from the PTA, the students, parents that we have, we could at least get a start in the right direction, get something on there.
And that word fluid is a good word for it too, because you'll put it out there and then somebody might say, well, hey, I want this, or we might look and say, well, this tab's never being used, and you adapt as you go.
And you're not bound by that bound book.
Right.
We're talking
Get my
about
tongue drawn.
nothing's getting printed. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not, the handbook would definitely be a digital
Of course,
thing with
of
whatever.
course. A handbook and name only.
Yes,
but-
exactly.
I think too, people still like to pick up the phone and call and get a question answered personally too. So I think that figuring out who's
Yes.
responsible for what and how to get a hold of that person to get a specific question answered is really important for parents.
Which is the flow chart of responsibilities, which we've talked about,
We have,
and that
yeah.
really needs to be on like who I talk to about,
Right.
I mean,
I was just thinking that.
be beneficial too is clerical answers the phone at that directory. Because a lot of times someone asks them the question, and it's, I don't
Yeah.
know, about, so we start at the front office,
Mhm.
who's in charge of what, so a person calls out this question about this, are you
Absolutely.
gonna talk to so-and-so?
Yep.
Now, that flow chart is pretty fulsome. Is that, do we want to put that exact one out, or is there something that's more filtered that would be appropriate? I
They
don't
want a
know.
little bit more filtered.
Yeah.
That one's too detailed, I think.
I think that one was for the staff, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was-
there is one that's like simplified floating around out there.
Yeah.
Dig it up,
yeah.
That could be a good start.
Well, we should have like a who do I call document.
Yeah, who do I call?
If, is it classroom, is it building,
Right.
is it district? Yeah.
Pretty good title. Right there.
Who do I call?
Who do I call?
Who do I call Link?
So they're both in process.
Okay.
And we feel that same way about the staff. The staff handbook
think-
and the parent
Well,
handbook.
and there's also a staff tab on there, so is the
Right.
staff handbook, again, just gonna be what's on that?
Mhm.
And I forget what all the headings that we had under there. There were resources for staff, which, parents would never use, like, and we debated how much staff would be looking at them on there, certain programs, which I forget what
I'll go there.
various things were
Right,
called.
but we did
But,
consolidate the
Have it in
website to those
Okay.
like 6 tabs where there's districts, students,
Okay.
staff, parents, and those drop-down menus, you can then navigate to your specific needs. We also found that some of them cross over, so you could find these
Mhm.
links in more than one spot. But that would be a compelling link for a teacher. If you have a question about a procedure, our own website will lead you there.
Mhm.
And at least, again, that's fluid as well. It's something that if we have agreement on some things, we can possibly get that out there. And then for the more debatable issues, we continue to get feedback and add to that as we gain agreement.
So, things that might be in a handbook for staff might also just be policies, like the 9,000 policies of how to deal with a
Yeah.
complaint or,
Can you bring up the?
That was actually feedback I
Bring
received
up
from
staff.
the STA, as like we're
Amanda,
putting all the stuff in there. and
Yeah, I
like,
just-
well, where's the policy that supports that? I'm like, well, we'll have to
This
We'll
21,
have to dig it
22.
up.
No,
you
not
know,
the
so
policy,
they
they
were,
go
they
to
were
the actual
asking, well, could we
website?
hyperlink it in here? I'm like, sure, but then obviously it's not.
I'm just gonna add,
printed.
if you don't mind, I'm gonna ask Julie just to bring up
Right.
the current tabs.
We're looking to do that
I'm gonna
too,
share this with
making
Julie
the
as well.
policies more
um,
readable.
Go under,
Readable, yes, yeah.
for staff. Go under staff handbook. Okay, so this is the old one that's there, which is sort of the basis. And again, we did go to digital where this wasn't an actual handbook unless it was a brand new staff member and they requested that. But some of the topics, and we can go through, and when we did work with the STA, yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, right, yeah, you're gonna have all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, so I think,
So you really
while
need
it
staff
It was
sounds.
an 80-page document.
It's an 80-page, as is the parent handbook as well. So one of the things, the question came up, how much of it does have to be human resources related, how much of it should be policy, how much of it should be really action steps, fire drills, what are the action steps? So this is the part that I think is gonna require a little bit more conversation from the STA, because I think we get into some real nitty gritty here. The parent one, again, I think keeping it visual, keeping it very quick and easy to use. I see these as two very different things.
Right.
The parent handbook per se and the
Right.
staff
But if
one.
you go into district policy, if you go into district, your policy,
Yeah.
policy come up. Is it linked to that?
No, not on this document, it isn't, not on the 1921.
But like right here, you have child abuse and maltreatment, child abuse, the child abuse things, those are policies. Should those be in the handbook, which is giving people instructions how to do something, whereas the policy, I mean, that covers everybody.
Well, let's
Schools, so
look
does
at,
that-
let me see what it says real quick.
Because if we're gonna go digital, can we
Child abuse
digitally
and neglect,
enhance this?
page
So it's
11.
like, click a link and it brings it to that link.
Right,
We could.
yeah, and everything is linked up. So the district will cooperate, so it does tell a little bit about what it's based on, but, and it defines child abuse, it describes reporting procedures.
Right, which is all in the
Yes,
policies.
this is actually the old the
Okay.
policy. So that's the question, do we need to have policies there if we have a link to policies even on the board, the board tab, the board docs?
But I think since the policies, those get approved and are coming from our attorney, they
Yeah.
can't be any different from what's in the handbook. So maybe having something like that
Just
should
a
actually
link.
just be in the
That's one thing, you
policies.
gotta
just
link
be-
them, because we're trying to cut the page down.
Yeah.
Because the hardest thing to do is, okay, I opened up the
Right,
handbook,
scroll,
now I got up to page 31,
scroll,
oh,
right,
like
right,
that.
right.
And
Well,
I'm
I
trying to
think
get
the
it. And then-
format would be different too.
What's that?
I think the format, you could
Yes.
make like a little mini web page
So we-
within the
should
web
jump
page,
down,
right, where
yeah,
it doesn't look
yeah.
like a handbook, it looks
Yeah.
like, little
We have like the.
click, 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 click. But I just wanted to pull this up because this is the current one.
Because this is no different than the book sitting in your
Yeah.
junk drawer.
That's exactly right. That's where this is
Yeah.
what, that's
Yeah.
just a printed version of this.
Yeah. It's the same
Yeah.
one,
Yes,
but it's the same thing.
yeah,
It's in the junk
so
drawer.
we need to bring it into the
Julie, I
newsletter.
also sent you the list from the communication committee,
Okay,
and that has all the tabs on top,
Right,
and then what comes underneath them.
plus the website, the links will give it an air of being current.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
You know, some of this you won't even look at because you're not sure if it's going to be omitted or not, or modified.
Yeah, so it seems like there's like health and safety stuff, which is school-wide, but then that there's, giving instruction part, which is strictly for the
Teachers.
teachers,
Mhm.
right?
yeah, I mean, you'd want curriculum, but that's a curriculum tab,
Right.
so not everything's gonna be, I think the layout's just gonna be completely different. We'll take pieces out of the handbooks and put them sort of in different places on the website.
Copy and paste what's relevant.
Yeah.
The good thing is the writing is,
We actually took out a lot, you took out a lot of
I pared it way down.
Old.
There was a lot of old stuff. There was a lot of stuff that was like,
Right.
why,
And so
why
you
would
took the
anybody need
staff-
to know
staff
this
handbook.
for the staff handbook?
Okay,
Yeah, it was
yeah.
just a lot of really
And the
nitty gritty
parent one.
stuff.
There was
And the
some-
parent one too, there was stuff in there that was like, I mean, like, who would even know to ask about this kind of stuff? Do they really need it? So, and then a lot was added as well, like with the new programs that are run out,
Right.
the after school behavioral support program, stuff was added about that. We added stuff about some curricular pieces in there. So that it kind of went both ways. It got shaken up a little bit, but
Right. So is that the kind of thing that every year it should get like a quick review and update the date on it so people know that it's current from, if you're talking about programs and things like that, in case anything changes,
Well, if it's not gonna be in handbook form,
things will just get updated.
it'll just get updated regularly.
Right, yes.
That's the way I see it, just keep it
Right, but
current.
I remember somebody at one of our meetings was saying, how current is this? Or they were talking about teachers' web pages, I think, like, is this actually from this current year? Because it looks like the date on there is from like 3 years ago, and is this the most current information? So sometimes updating the date on things, people know it's been looked at.
But I think anytime you spread that out further than having a concise place where that information is, teacher's webpage, some teachers are really committed to that, other teachers are not. So, and you can't really mandate everybody has to have a web page unless you produce it for them in a way. I think most parents, when they go onto the website, they're looking for just a specific information, so they need an easy way to get to that specific information.
Yes. Yeah, one of the things that the question nowadays, yeah.
All right, so we have a couple of works in progress here
But,
Yeah.
you know, I
A lot of
know,
the heavy lifting is done. It'll be digitizing it will be, you know,
and
Is that
figuring out
something
the
we
best,
want to farm out?
then.
maybe.
we're doing the
Depends on
website
timeline.
training on the 17th?
Yes,
On the 17th, so that will be a good opportunity to ask the people who are designing the website, like, here's what we want to do, we want to take this handbook, we know what we want to say, we just don't know what format, like, how, and I'm sure that they will have some recommendations for us.
That's, I'm sorry, website training? you said?
Yeah,
Okay, is that for, oh, that's for,
the administrators right now, right?
administrators and their clerical staff.
The whole point is having them is to do the backdoor kinds of stuff that needs to be done so you can easily connect things together.
Right,
So I'm sure they'll, if they've done that,
yeah,
there'll be ways to do that.
okay. That's what we're
It's
hoping.
only in a webpage where no one does the backdoor stuff and doesn't know how to do the backdoor stuff. Again,
And it's time consuming, you know, and to have the administrative staff doing the back doing all this stuff, it's time. You're doing double duty, you know.
Yeah.
It's a lot more to your plate.
That's why we're invited the clericals for all the administrators to join us, because we could say, I want this put on the website, and they can put, it's almost like filling out a form. That's what I've been
If
told.
it's that simple, that's a great idea, but if it's not that simple, then we look to invest in.
I think we'll find out more on the 17th, right?
Yes.
And know exactly how.
How it fits into the architecture.
Yeah.
And once it's there, I think the idea that we've learned so far is that once it's embedded in the architecture, you'll be able to navigate that
Yes.
and have the update. But that's the question for them. This part is just how to migrate
Is
that.
that accurate, John? I hate to involve you in this discussion. Does it make sense?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
You know a lot about backdoors and the website, so.
Well,
Make
yeah,
sure
with
that-
the new website interface, it'll be a lot easier for multiple people to do updates.
Yeah, I think that's what we're asking.
Yeah.
This interface that we have now is okay, but it's pretty cumbersome,
Okay.
so,
And
yeah,
you would
exactly.
know that.
So, if a clerical person wants to update, posting, whatever, something from Paris Square right to, it'll be a lot easier, which will make it easy to get the information out quickly and correctly. And so the only thing we'll have to work on is any overlaps, so that 3 people on posting the same thing of the same piece of information,
right, yeah.
so that,
No, there's still gonna be some administrative look and everything, what gets posted anyway, right?
yeah, but,
Administrative.
information comes through a lot and from one department to the other,
Yes.
so that's just a little, add point, but in terms of technical, yeah, this will be a lot better.
Okay, great,
So-
thank you very much.
We are taking questions with each topic that we're going over, so if anybody, LTV is calling in about the handbooks, this is the time to let us know.
All right, we have no callers at this time.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts or questions about the handbooks from the board right now?
No.
Okay, then let's move along to discussing goals.
So what I've done is took our thoughts the last time we met on goals and put them here for you. So the first one was the one that we didn't have flushed out well enough. We wanted some feedback from our building administrators. Improve school culture and student achievement is very broad. What we need from the board is, how do we define success? Who are we? Who is Spring School? What is student achievement? How do we define that? Where do we want to be? What's the end game in mind? And how do we measure growth? So these are some of our discussion points. Openly share data, discussions, and goals to improve academic rigor and performance. Again, we want to define that even more, what it looks like. Review current curriculum, programs, and initiatives to ensure that we're utilizing and supporting our instructional goals. And then continue to develop and implement restorative practices. And I really would like this to be a dialogue back and forth with the building administrators. I think this is the goal that needs to be flushed out the most.
Yes, all of that.
It's a lot to unpack.
What you said.
It's a lot there.
Christine, you spoke a little bit today about, student achievement is really defined by New York State standards.
That's everything we do, not everything we do, but that's what drives everything we do. It's supposed to drive everything we do. So if you're looking for clarity, New York State Ed and their mandates and what we're supposed to do and what we get paid to do as public school officials and teachers and staff members is all about student achievement. I mean, we're here to move the needle on student achievement. We're here to make sure kids can read and do math and think critically and problem solve and all that stuff. So for me, that it's kind of a no-brainer, like student achievement. And it's not just about test scores, but for New York State, that's how they do measure student achievement, is
Right.
standardized testing.
Yeah, but I think we're also talking about what is achievement for us here at Springs,
Right,
and that
right.
might not be. with
Right, no,
scores.
but
Yeah.
I'm just going back on how it was proposed to me by Ms.
Okay.
Winter, and also today in an earlier discussion, what is student achievement? I think we're all pretty clear on what student achievement is. I think success and achievement are two very different things. I can look at a child and say, that's a high achieving child. I don't consider them a successful child because their emotional intelligence needs to be more developed. I think that these are very, very specific things. I would absolutely, and I know Josh too, would appreciate guidance from the board on what are your priorities, because there's so many competing priorities in a public school. And that's what we have dealt with over many years at Spring School is, are we putting our resources here? Are we putting it here? Because we have limited resources, obviously. So student achievement to me is a non-negotiable. That is what we're here to do.
Right.
And doing that within the context of the whole child is the right way to do it. So having said that, I stand very firmly on that. I do think that there are things that we could do to focus more on student achievement. And that might be at the cost of other things that we've invested in over the years, but because you can't do everything.
Right.
And I think we have to come together and say, well, who are we as a community, and what do we want our brand to be, and what do we want success to look like for our kids?
Well, I think that a good start is what you're saying is defining achievement versus student success. And if we're looking at the whole child, what metrics, and not that I don't like to lean too much on metrics, but maybe, just sometimes feedback, it doesn't have to be always so formal, but what does student success look like? What does that individual look like? How do they cope with the testing and everything that's going on? Our ability maybe in terms of what % of our students participate in extracurricular programs, those might be things to help you in that regard. But I think that's important because achievement is a foregone conclusion, but we're also saying we do want to account for how we get there, and the success of the child, the student is important to us. So,
and if we had all the resources in the world, and we had all the time in the world, and all the energy, we would be able to do all things for all people, but we can't, so we have to make hard choices.
And if we can learn about that, we can maybe prioritize those.
Exactly. So there's always a sort of a trend in education going around, or a theory or something, and people jump on bandwagons, and then it sort of fizzles out, and you put all these resources into something, and then you don't really ever see the dividends from it.
Right.
And, what we do is too important to not look closely at that. And I do think that getting our kids the intellectual and academic backing that they need to be successful as they leave Spring School and go forward, it just gives them more options. And I think that should be the driving force. Of course, safety and well-being, of course, but that goes without saying.
Can somebody scroll it so we can see what the actual goal number 1 says again? I keep forgetting.
It was very broad.
Improve
School culture and student achievement.
So, to me, thinking about academically student achievement, I feel like I'm thinking less about the test scores and less about, is each child making improvement? How much improvement does a child need to make in their ability to show achievement?
In New York State size, there's growth and there's achievement.
Right. Okay. So I guess
there's progress, there's growth, and there's achievement, and there's all different benchmarks for that based on the individual child, all wrapped around these standards.
Right.
It's complex.
You're saying we have to choose which benchmarks to measure?
Well, no, I think my question to Barbara is, you want growth for every student at all times. Every student should be growing at all times. But achievement to me is, it's defined by New York State a little bit differently.
So how does the state define achievement?
Show what you know and make sure you've mastered the standards at your grade level. That's basically how it boils down. Tim?
Well, I think it's, you're on grade level, or above grade level, or you're below grade level.
Right.
It sounds very simplistic, but that's how the state looks at it.
Yes.
So the standards are there to help teachers understand what a child looks like that is on grade level, what a child looks like when they're above grade level, and what a child looks like when they're below grade level. The key is knowing where children are at, and then being able to understand how they grow over time.
Right.
So if you try to put a child into this idea that they're below grade level, and you want them to be on grade level, but you don't do anything to help them get there, then you're not going to see the growth. So it's actually making those decisions, which are very, they're professional, teacher-based decisions that are based on diagnosis and prescription and assessment. So that's why it's so complex. A goal of improving school culture and student achievement, I don't know. I have a hard time with that goal, to be honest with you.
Right.
Because it's so inherent in other things that you do.
So, I mean, what
I
can we-
just, I hate, we keep going back to student achievement. Again, students are achieving all kinds of different things in different ways. What we have to, I think, this is my opinion, what the board would like to see from the administration is how they do that. Again, just having a discussion with us about how you're going about doing that and what it means for the students here. We're really not here to tell you how you do this, at least from my perspective.
Right.
It's really, we're here to hear from you how you're doing it and how you felt that you're meeting this goal. And that's why it's so difficult, because I'm not so sure that's the kind of goal we really need to have.
So is maybe the first sentence then, should actually that be the goal? Utilize data, research, experience, and collaboration to inform instruction and strategic planning. Should that be the goal, and scrap the bit about the student achievement?
I like that a little bit better, Barbara, and I also think it gives more definitivity about what your first question was, Christine.
Mm-hmm.
What do we want
Mm-hmm.
as a board?
Yeah.
We just want to know and see the evidence that students here at Spring School are growing over time, achieving based on state standards, and having success in the real world they live in.
I think we also want to know that we're using best practices, which would be based upon
Well, I think
data.
that,
So, but all those things, so in my mind, a goal is something you're working toward.
Right.
All those things are already in place. The benchmarking, the multi-tiered support system, to get the kids.
Right.
Our report card, our state report card, we're in good standing every single year,
Right.
always. That there's schools that aren't in good standing, that go on a list.
So your opinion is.
So that's your evidence. That's your evidence that students are growing here every single day, K through 8, is that according to all the metrics in New York State, who is our boss and funds our school, they have said we are meeting the growth benchmark.
but those are objectives, again, and again, we have to have objectives to meet a goal. So our objectives really are to go through the processes the state's put in place for us to be a school in good standing. That's an objective to get to this idea of student
Right.
achievement, would you say?
So should your goal be something you're already doing currently, or should it be something that you're looking
good
toward?
question. Yeah, I see what you're
Either
saying.
that,
Well,
or you want to see improvement, something you're already
Yeah.
doing, or you're putting a goal as something that you can build like a framework to get to.
Look at PLC.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
what's PLC?
Professional learning community.
Okay.
So,
And that gets into professional development and spending resources on time for teachers to be best at their craft and learning new instructional practices and mentoring new teachers and all of that stuff that we've talked about at other workshops and things all feed into the, And that's, I think, the thing is that there are already frameworks in place. That doesn't mean you have to stick with what you're currently doing. It can look differently and it can morph into something else. I think it just depends on how we're defining achievement. You know, your state report card shows growth. We're really good at growth and progress. We need to get better at achievement. We need to get better at showing achievement. Let's put it that way. You know, our test scores, while comparatively speaking to other East End schools, especially during the pandemic, we did all right. But overall, because they were all pretty low overall over the whole country, but we've always held steady with our test scores, and that's even with the opt-out movement. So I think, and I know I'm talking a lot about tests because, again, that is, you can't maneuver around the state mandates and what the frameworks that they've set up for you, right? But there's a lot of other things that go into that. But I personally think we have good frameworks. I guess I'm having a hard time. I don't know where the top of the mountain is. That's what I'm looking to you for.
So maybe just the board saying a better understanding of the student achievement and progress here at Spring School.
I would agree with that, because certainly we can always, we can get a presentation on our test scores and how we're doing. But in terms of like day-to-day or, non-testing understanding of achievement with our students.
Would you give me an example? Can you give me an example, please?
Well, with various programs that we use, changes that we make, how has achievement changed when we've gone from A to B? Has something been affected?
I have an example.
Has instruction been affected because we have made this change? I feel like we don't necessarily always get enough feedback on that.
Okay, I have an example of that. One is after seeing the New York State math test last year was just very linguistic heavy, would say, right? It's a lot of reading, a lot of text to digest. If students were unable to digest text, they're not going to be able to do the math that goes along with it, right? Which is an unfortunate way that the test is set up. So this year in the scheduling process, we worked with the reading department to set up small group interventions twice a week per grade level, targeting our K through 2 students, with the idea being, well, you've got to start it here, right? We've already got these kids who get services, who get AIS services, who get pull-out services through the reading department, through the math department, or kind of extra support throughout the course day. That's usually in kind of our older students. We're looking at, well, how do we target these guys? So we know that down the road, when these guys make it to 3rd grade, they're going to have had several years of targeted small group reading instruction outside of or in addition to their normal school day. And that's kind of the funny thing about education, is that we implement these programs, and it often takes time to see how they really play out and to see how they do it. If only you could flip a switch.
It's not so linear. And COVID interrupted a lot. So things that we started 5 years ago, initiatives, things that, people have been working really hard toward the last 10 years here, 15, 20 years here, there was a big old interruption in there. And so that is going to affect your data. But to Josh's point, so we will be able to track that data almost like a longitudinal study with how many kids then are referred to MTSS for support, how many kids, and again, of course, standardized test scores, but also our assessments that we do in the classrooms, the teachers' notes, the conferencing, of course, you get into that. I guess my question is, this almost sounds like tasks more than a goal. So that's where I get confused, because we are more than happy to meet any goal that the board presents to us. I think we just want to be really clear on what that goal is, and that it's not a task. If you want to meet every month and get long-term data of some sort, say for exactly a program like that, we'd be happy to do that. That sounds to me like it's more one little piece of a much, much larger.
Well, I think goal number 2, improving governance and communications, this might be the educational part of that, like tracking initiatives and following up with data.
Gotcha.
And so to say, like, our goal is, okay, let's figure out what are things that we're doing starting this year and going forward, or maybe taking a look at last year, what are some things that we focused on, and have we had, do we show achievements from the initiatives that we've taken of these certain things? And maybe it's something short-term, or maybe it's looking at something, saying, okay, well, the kindergartners this year have gotten extra, so in 3 years when they're in third grade, how is that class doing? Or is there actually anecdotal evidence from the teachers in the higher grades that, the kids this year, so I have so many more kids reading on grade level, just even anecdotally, as opposed to whatever, as we're taking these initiatives.
All of that
to
data
bring-
exists.
Right, okay.
It depends, how do you want it
Well,
packaged?
again,
Okay, then,
going
so-
back to that idea of a better understanding,
Yeah,
because if we can understand it better, I think then the community at large can understand it better. You guys are the ones, you're the experts, you know what you're doing, you know why you're doing it.
Right.
You're answering those questions up there, where do we want to be? You know the answers to those questions. Not everybody in the community does, not everybody on the board
Not
does.
everybody on board does, no, because having the smaller group instruction in the lower grades, that was something that was brought, the board was asked for that a few years ago. It's like, we'd like to have some focus on the extra reading instruction in the younger grades. We'd like to do push-in reading. That's great. But I think the board getting follow-up on like that, it's like, we did that initiative, and,
Gotcha.
this is happening with our kids' achievements. So we know that it's these kind of expenses are good, and that's
Right,
something
the
that's
dividends,
helpful.
right.
And especially since we are coming out of COVID, this would be a good time to say, okay, the goal is for a better understanding of where we are right now and where we want to go, where we want to be. How we want to continue the trend that you've expressed to us as you've looked at the data over the years. That spring school has always, met certain standards and continues to grow in certain ways, but in other ways it don't. So let us understand what those are, so that as we then, that goal would tie directly into some of the goal number 3, which is, strategic planning. So if the board is more informed about that, then as we look at budget time, and you guys look at budget time, we can be more part of that strategic planning, and understand it more about what your needs are versus wants. And it's based on the fact that, we have improved our communication, we have improved our governance, and we also have a better understanding of what we mean by student achievement, so that we ought to be able to produce better budget with the resources that we have to meet the needs of teachers and students and parents.
I mean, I don't think we're trying to ask for, leaps of achievement. I don't think that goals like that. So I think if there's maybe a miscommunication here about what we're looking for when we're talking about improving student, having an understanding of what we're doing, that kind of falls under, goal 2, which is communication. So, improve communication and governance, which is the board, going along with recommendations and then getting the follow-up from what those were.
Since the student achievement is kind of embedded in that, would it make sense then to take goal number 1? Goal number 1 is pretty broad, and there's 2 main parts of it, which is culture and achievement. And what we're talking about right now is to roll in what we're discussing, student achievement, and put that under goal number 2, since inherently there's always a goal to improve student achievement. You have ongoing work, these longitudinal studies, like Christine said, if you will, that we don't necessarily have real-time data on yet. The data is coming, and we're asking for communication as that information comes in terms of what is being done for that. And then in terms of goal 1, there's this element of school culture. And one of the things that I've looked at as defining that goal is, it's not just the students in the school that I think is a part of this culture, it's administrators and teachers. And I'd like to see what we have in place. I know we're working on some things, we've had discussions. This also helps guide committee work, right? And we have these goals. If one of them is to improve school culture, that would help, say, the Health, Safety, and Wellness Committee institute programming that's available for teacher well-being. I'd like to see what we're going to come up with in that. To potentially help with teacher retention, administrator retention, how we do work that's culture to me. You know?
I think that's, yeah, part of it.
So you want to change the first goal to really be about culture and put
Well, I don't know,
achievement
right, that's a
under
big goal
improved
right there,
governance?
right?
Well, I think that what we're asking, it's, achievement is happening, and I think it's the communication of achievement.
Okay.
Right.
The sharing of achievement, the board in particular, and the community at large also, so we know how our students are doing, and perhaps just getting more feedback.
Would it make sense just to forget about goal one?
Let's forget about goal number one.
And just focus on goal number two and put as an objective the student achievement part. And put another objective in there, the student culture part. And then under those objectives, there would be things that would be related to meeting that objective, which would improve governance and communication.
Let's see if I have this.
Well, we do want to improve the culture in the school. I don't know, I think that's a part of it. I mean, in terms of a goal, what are we doing to improve school culture?
But wouldn't that fit under governance and communication too, Eric?
Well, actually, I think, so
You
what we
could
fit under.
put culture, government, and communication. But again, is that with the objective of improving the culture?
See, I'm confused about the whole thing with culture. I mean, maybe I'm in a box.
Well, I think Eric just said that one of the things that is so powerful about culture is the fact that what makes people want to be here, right? Okay.
Culture is your feeling about a situation, which I think is, however we discuss it and do it, but it has merit, whereas the governance and communication is how we go about our business and how we communicate the results of our business. But in terms of when we talk about social emotional well-being, I think that passes on to the administrators, the teachers, the students. So we have something like Open Gym tonight. That's something that just started. That's improving fitness and wellness opportunities for students, in our school. What are we doing for teachers? What other things might we have?
Those are objectives that you want to have going on.
Yeah, those could be like the motivation for the objectives to achieve the goal of, if somebody asks you, how do you feel about being a teacher at spring school? How do you feel? What was your experience as a student at spring school? What did that mean to you? Did you feel that you were part of something? And so the objectives then are, what are we offering that make people feel that way?
So,
Without being communicated, we offer a lot of programs in this school that are well out there, that, I've been out now 2 years now, so there's still a lot more programs that added, more COVID after COVID. And we're just to communicate what we're doing, these are simple things that the green need to do, we're still doing that, right, in the morning.
Yeah,
That's a big cultural thing.
sure.
We haven't heard about it in a while, but it's nice to be reminded, I would think, Because one of the things I don't want to sit here and want to hear all the doom and gloom about, there's no culture in the school, we're not successful with our students. I think our students are. We've seen students who come out of here very successful. We want to keep that going, right?
Yeah,
And you see,
sure.
there's certain things we have to change that we're doing in the past to do in the future.
Mhm.
Those are things I'd like to hear about. What should we be changing?
100%. And how would you like to hear about that? Like, what does that look like to you? Is that a presentation at every board meeting? Is that your conversations that you have on a regular basis with the superintendent?
I have no problem with the principal and the superintendent. We do a work session, we do an executive session.
Okay, great.
I have no problem either way. I think it should be open dialogue
Okay,
to administrative team, that's my opinion, administrative team and the school board.
fantastic.
And we do it as a group, not a one-on-one, and superintendent wants to do it, the superintendent, 8 of us there, that's fine. I have no problem with that.
So to you, is like goal number one more just assess school culture and see,
Yeah, see where we're at.
see where we are and what improvements could be made?
Right.
Is that,
I mean, things have changed since
Does
COVID.
that make sense? I don't know.
I don't know.
The school-
Is that,
Well, the school has totally
Yeah.
changed in the last 3 years that I've seen it. So we've had the security issues before.
Yes.
Well, when this school was an open door policy,
Mhm.
we lost that, it closed down.
Oh.
So a lot of the parents haven't been involved in the school as much as they used to. We're trying to get to these parents.
Right,
You've seen all these changes. We know nothing about them.
okay.
At least I don't know nothing about them. These changes have affected your career, this school culture, this school learning. And
Right,
mental health is a big issue. We know that.
right.
How are we addressing that? I'd rather see a kid mentally healthy than worried about a state exam, but the state exam is required.
Sure.
And that's, I think, you will get into. We gotta do one thing and not another thing.
Mhm,
I'd like to hear from you and Josh.
mhm.
What do we need? How do we get there? That should be our number one goal,
Okay.
to me.
I think the goals are very important to drive your budget. Without setting the goals, why do we need to spend this money?
Yeah, but, yeah, well, that's not a communication, add the principal's report, if she doesn't, we have programs, working great. We have open school night now. But do we, I was a little taken back. We have open school night, discussion was, do we allow ninth graders? That conversation should have been happening before we had the open school night.
Okay, yeah.
No, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, does the rest of the public know that? No. So what happens is now the ninth graders come down, boy, they kicked us out. Now we have 4 or 5, and then we didn't kick them out, you did the right thing, you let them stay. But, we did the right thing, you let them stay.
I'm confused how this is remotely related to goal setting for the
It's all
year.
to do with culture. What about culture in school?
Okay. Mhm.
So, just more communication, I think is helpful throughout all of us.
That's under governance. and
Yeah.
I think
communication.
everything Pat said, I think the point of the school culture part is that, in my mind, we're coming out of COVID, and it was a very difficult time for everybody. As part of school culture, I think it's necessary to include what we're doing for the mental health and well-being of administrators, teachers, and the students. We're very focused on our student programs. I think, like Pat said, there's been a lot of good things going on. We have new things to look forward to. It's good to communicate what those are, but how are we improving school culture from those different segments?
And you'd like to see that in the principal's report at a board meeting? Is that the venue that we're talking about here? Is that
I
how
don't
you
know,
like it
I'm up for
packaged?
discussion.
Ms. Winter, well, how would the
Just
superintendent like it?
Just an example.
No, really, just on the walls.
The superintendent updates also provide some information, so I believe the back to the open gym was part of the superintendent's update. And then at a board meeting, you would approve the chaperones and more information would be given. But we wanted to start it right after the vacation because the winter months are when these kids have the most time on their hands and they're looking for, there's nothing to do out here. They need this socialization. So,
And I don't know if all these things need board approval. I mean, some of the things that we come up with in the committees, I know some
I was told it
things-
didn't, just.
Right, yeah, I don't know if we even needed to. I mean, obviously,
yeah, but
the board
it's
could
just
speak on that.
for your information.
Right, yeah.
For your
Yeah,
information.
I didn't get a chance to read the minutes over the holiday,
Yeah.
was in there great, I highlighted, but I'm saying that, a communication like that, it's not a select few, it's open to, just the ideas like that, and how do we want to present them to the board? That's something we should be discussing. We want, you're the principal, Josh's assistant principal, you run the school, that runs the district. That's something we have discussion.
Sure.
Well, all of us together, I think,
I think we're open to all options, I think.
without being told what to do. You know what I mean? We have to go to the consent, the proper way to do this.
So I think what we need to do is have a revisiting of the goals. I think that it sounds like we want to put student achievement, put that under communications and just make, increase feedback to board on initiatives and student achievement. Goal number 1 is going to be something about school culture, I think, and SEL for staff, teachers, and students, and we can do some more work on that. And then we can revisit that, goal number 1.
Okay.
And we should probably move along to our budget discussion. Are we ready to move ahead to the budget?
Yeah, well,
no, I'm good.
We'll
Okay.
put something together for
Okay.
the first goal.
Just
And
think about goals and then objectives. If this is a goal, school culture, it's very wide and big. So what would be some objectives that the school could work towards that would achieve that goal? Improvement of students.
is it finding additional programming for our students, for our staff, or whatever, to assist with the school culture? What are
Is it
some?
additional training that
Right,
needs
yes.
to be incorporated? So therefore, looking at those objectives, we could then look at the budget and see, okay, what are your suggestions of how to budget for that? So to me, you build it by knowing what your goal is and then coming up with the objectives you want to to accomplish that goal.
Wait, I thought you just said come with the objectives and then objectives, and then you know what the goal is.
No,
The
no.
objectives are to.
No, again, it goes together. You can't have a goal unless you have objectives of how to achieve that goal. So you can have broad goals, and the key is, how do you get to that goal? And that's where the objectives are important to have stated. How are you going to do this?
So for instance, using data, right, to drive instruction and improve student achievement, making sure all the teachers are trained to understand how to analyze data, student data, and then how to implement best practices based on that analysis. Goal setting one-on-one, right? Right, okay.
That's what it is.
But I think, is that consensus though, is that what we're you know what I mean? That, I think it's the consensus part that's a little tricky.
Consensus part with whom?
I want to make sure that if we're going to work toward that, which we will, that the board has consensus that that's what they want to go toward. So say, you know, then when we ask for resources or time, which we've had this discussion many, many times about providing extra time for professional development,
Right.
where it's not.
Well, actually, this is, maybe we should talk about this now.
Oh, did you, yeah?
No, because when we were talking about that.
Yeah.
Professional development, we're talking about the need to allocate time for that.
Correct, yeah,
So,
sure, that would be a way to achieve that goal.
Can
Well,
we,
that would be an
Right.
objective to
Right.
achieve that goal.
Correct,
Okay.
but can
So,
we,
and again, that would be very clear, so it would be measurable.
yeah,
So then when, at the end of the year, when you said, okay, how successful have we been in accomplishing our goals? We could say, well, let's look at the objectives we put down and how
Mhm.
we were able to implement them. And then a report out by the administration to the board about that.
sure, yeah,
And then
no,
would
yeah.
be the culminating kind of process at the end of the year of that goal setting.
Mhm.
We set the goal, we create objectives to meet the goal, and then we provide the resources to do that. And if we didn't, then it would be evident that's why we didn't achieve the goal.
Mhm.
So the request had been put out, which we need to talk about, for having the half day, and the last time your suggestion was having it before a holiday, which you
Yes.
brought up at the end of last year. So we have two holidays coming, you know, two recesses coming up. We have our winter one
February
and the
break,
spring
and,
one.
yeah,
So the question is, okay, should we go ahead and try having a half day for professional development, say before February break? Or is that too soon? Or should we look at something for before Easter break?
We discussed a little bit about it, and one of the things is, you make an objective, you need a plan,
Mhm.
right? So the simple thing to me came was, okay, we're gonna do a half a day.
Yep.
Right? We have a community that most people work 12-hour shifts,
Mm.
so we need childcare. Most can't handle childcare. How can we take care of those parents?
Mhm.
So we want to do a half day of development, to come up with a plan, how we help these parents out.
To provide childcare for the
Yes.
parents.
Right.
You know, that would be something I'm asking you to do, because, you know, I would ask you, you know, as administrators in the school, how can we help these parents out? We have a lot of parents here that can't afford to lose a half a day, pick up their kids, or leave them at the nest.
Right, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we did give an option for that, in that the teaching assistants would stay, because right now contractually, they don't have to stay. When there's a half day of school, they could stay and provide childcare for,
That would work. That's.
yeah, we've discussed, yeah, okay,
No, but I
we can
wasn't going
revisit
back.
that, yeah.
I might have missed that one again.
Okay.
You know, but,
Okay.
so it's consensus, yeah, so you have childcare for them, so that's a no-brainer then. We have a plan, we do a half a day, nobody's getting really hurt, we get a full, you know.
Right. So
It's a plan.
But I did tell the board that our
But it's not a work.
attendance is very low before a holiday break. A lot of people do leave early. Like 11%, I think, was.
Student attendance,
Student
correct,
attendance.
not
11%,
teacher.
still only 70 students out of 700.
So in terms of having TAs available to do that, then, are we looking at kids staying in their classrooms with TAs? Or are we looking at a certain amount of people will just take their kids away, and we're looking more at a
It depends on the professional
supervisory thing?
development that's being offered. Some would be group professional development, some would need different areas for people to work in small groups.
That's the plan.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying, the objective, got a plan, that's what I like to see, you know.
So,
How are we gonna do it?
so do we
Oh,
need a
okay.
plan from you in order to decide what's happening for February?
Is
If we're gonna-
February too soon?
This,
to pull off
this is the
of
first I'm hearing.
No,
of-
we discussed it 20 months ago.
No,
Right, okay, so,
this came up before.
Yeah,
You
no,
asked us
I can
about
have
this
it
last
tomorrow,
year.
I mean, I've already, yeah.
So-
I,
So- I think our question to you now is, you asked for.
I didn't know I was getting a to-do list tonight, but okay.
I mean, we can put it off discussing it from this evening if that's easier, if you'd rather discuss at the next board meeting, or I can just tell you what we were talking about is how do we go ahead and make a decision on this then, if we're gonna do a half a day before a holiday.
Mhm.
And you're saying, well, how it's gonna work out is depending on what time of professional development, then, okay, maybe why don't you go ahead and give us a plan, not,
Sure,
not right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
To say, okay, so this is what we would need if we did it in February, or this is what we would need if we did it the Friday before the vacation, before Easter break.
Right.
This is this is the TAs that would be available.
Mhm.
This is how, we would anticipate a lot of parents would take their kids, so kids would be still in their classrooms, or would kids be in the gym, or we
Yeah.
create an activity.
The logistics
What's
of
that
it,
gonna,
yeah.
what are the logistics of that? How would that look like? And, we can have this under new business at our next board meeting,
Okay.
right?
I don't know, Barbara.
To say,
This is a big thing.
no, this is a big thing. So I'm just saying.
I know, but again,
depending
I'm
on
saying
when we want it to-
maybe spring break would be a better time to do
Right.
something like this than the break coming out.
Oh, sure, but I'm just saying, we're just saying to Christine, so if we need a plan to do that, can you figure out what the plan is, and, when we can talk about at a board meeting
So
and make
how
it happen
does that
prior
come
to
back?
a.
As I come back then, what we've been talking about here.
I think that
So
what
come
we're,
back to culture, and to Christine is saying what,
And
part of that
we've
is
gotta
giving
decide-
teachers.
No, we gotta decide first about what the goals are and the objectives, and that could be an objective in to meet that goal. And then we can get a plan from that.
I think the spirit of what we talked about, just sorry, Tim,
Yeah,
it's just
sorry, no.
more of like we discussed it, we know you have a need, but
Yeah.
we're putting teachers into that. The spirit of what you talked about seemed like a good idea, and we want to be able to give that to you when you're ready.
Well, 100% appreciate that
And
support.
if you give us a plan and we
You got
understand
it.
the
I
outcomes
have
of
a
that,
plan.
we
It is
can-
on my desk,
we
in my
can-
office, right now.
But the good
It's
news-
been
we
sitting
can
there
make it
ready
The
to
good
go.
news is that it could be a part of one of the objectives.
Gotcha.
Right, and that's how.
And it would be.
Big full
Okay.
circle back. We're saying, at least I was saying, I think we have agreement, but the teachers and administrators are important. What can we do? You've already had something in place. Professional development is a part of that, an objective toward that end.
Yeah.
And there's some good opportunities up ahead. It seems like a win-win, and we're looking forward to that.
I'm sorry I jumped in on you, when you have an objective and a plan.
It's a-
No, it's, I'm happy. I'm just a
I'll
little
give you an
surprised, but yes,
example.
no, I'll take it. I'll
Yeah,
take it. I'll
okay.
take it.
I'm
Thank
glad
you for that.
You spoke, we're listening, we
And-
want to account for that.
And we're very appreciative of that. Thank you very much. And I do think, I think it checks a lot of boxes.
But I think that's what we need as a board and the administrators, is
Yeah.
communication like this.
And that's going
Wonderful.
You know,
We're all
one
for it.
team, and it should never be more than one, team, That's why I feel. so.
At the ground.
Yeah.
Or out there. Yeah.
But it was important clarification, because I think we were mostly saying the same thing. when we
Gotcha.
Started the same.
Okay.
Because I know, I think we talked about it a month or two ago, you were talking about Blue Ribbon School.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, it's a wonderful thing, but are we really there? I don't think so.
no,
So
we're
now
not
what's
near
far away
that.
from it?
No, no, no,
We
no.
got kids who just,
Correct.
learn English as first language,
Right.
and we have a lot of emotional
It
stuff going.
takes, sometimes that's a 10-year goal.
You put it off the table, and the more important thing is get the kids to succeed individually, which you work on daily,
Yeah, sure.
and you can't measure that. But you can, but you can't write it on paper. You know by seeing it.
Mhm.
And I think with our concerns about culture, I mean, I think we need feedback from the administration to say, okay, this is what we think maybe needs to be worked on with school culture. It can't just be the board
Right.
saying, this is what we want to see happen. This needs to be a school goal.
Okay.
So it's like, all right, if we think we need to have a focus on culture, what are some of your suggestions on, what kind of goal would work for that, if you think that is
And that would be
necessary?
helpful to share through the committees as well. I think we discussed not long ago, the committees have an ongoing enrollment, that these committees were formed in the beginning, but they're not blocked off if
Right.
there's new interest. And it doesn't mean like we were asking for input from the PTA, from the student government. It's not that it's a silo. So if there's information from the staff that would benefit the communications committee in how we achieve goal number 2, or what we institute in terms of improved culture as a part of the health, safety, and wellness committee as part of goal number 1, those committees can be a conduit for that. They can be an extension of that, giving that feedback to the committee, whether you're a part of it or not, and the committee can begin that as part of the discussions that can become a part of the agenda. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Love it.
LTV, are there any calls about goals at this time?
We have no callers at this time.
All right. Okay, I think we should move into our budget discussion at this point.
Julie, can you bring up the PowerPoint? Okay, so tonight normally would be a budget workshop number one. We've renamed it tonight to be just a discussion, preliminary budget discussion. I'll explain why. This is my sixth budget presentation as a superintendent. And I'm really very proud of what Springs has accomplished in the last 6 years. We stayed within the cap, maintained programs and services, obtained significant grants, and over $125,000 in bullet aid for deal. We maximized all the ESSA funds that were given to us. And don't forget that this district completed a capital project during a pandemic. Springs' mission statement is up there. Springs is committed to providing a safe environment and enriched educational experience for our students with an emphasis on academic, physical, and social emotional growth. We will prepare our students to be lifelong learners, to respect cultural diversity, to embody positive character traits, to be responsible, caring citizens. And we refer back to this all the time. The next slide was proposed goals, and that's why I said it goes with the board discussion. And the next slide, please. Okay. We want to maintain a great deal in this budget going forward, but this budget also presents significant challenges, not only for our district, but for our staff and our community members. I'm stating the obvious when I say we're living in inflationary times, as high as 8%. This coupled with the massive global supply chain, supplies not getting here on time and then being 3 times the cost of what we expected it to be for a simple purchase of paper, Xerox paper. So go back, Julie, I want to just review some of the things that we want to maintain. So going forward, we want to continue our robust pre-K to 8 educational program that meets all the New York State standards and mandates. Small class size in K-5, not to exceed 25 students. Staffing that supports the New York State mandates and requirements. Commitment to instructional technology, including personnel. That's real important. Extracurricular programs, sports, band, chorus, opera, robotics. School safety. Adequate custodial maintenance staff to maintain our facilities. Fully staffed bus drivers and bus monitors. Permanent substitute teachers and teaching assistants. Quality professional development and ongoing curriculum work, which we just spoke to at great length, and the comprehensive social and emotional programs and restorative supports. And as I said, normally this would be a budget presentation with your tax cap, calculator, your state aid, your fund balance, but due to the change in staffing, we need some time to reflect on the next slide that's going to be presenting some of our challenges. So the goal for the board and for the cabinet, and we started on this, is to really reflect on what we want to maintain, what we want to fund in the upcoming budget, knowing that we are more than a spreadsheet, we're more than a number, we're more than a test score. We've got students to think about, we've got staff to think about, and our taxpayers. I'm going to call this budget the balancing act, because that's exactly what it is. Just want to give you some background information before I go into enrollment. Your contracts are currently in place for your teachers for 1 more year. So 2024, this contract is up. CSEA, your teacher assistants, contract's up in 2025. Bus drivers contract was up this past year and is still not settled. Custodial is up in June of 2024. When we did that contract, we were behind almost 4 years. So that's why we're back there again. Administrative unit, we just settled on salary last year. So that contract is up. We have 2 more years left on our contract with East Hampton School District for tuition. 2 more years, that's going to come up. Our enrollment in the high school, 9 to 12, continues to fluctuate. 1 month we're down 5, the next month we're up 5. It just, it's a revolving door. The other thing affecting this, can you skip over enrollment for now, Julie, and go to what's the challenges? Thank you. I've stated the obvious. Inflation is one of the biggest impacts of this budget. The price of fuel for our buses and heating through the roof. Health insurance costs up 15%. That's not just affecting the school district, that's affecting staff. When you look at staff that are making, $23,000 and now are paying $100 more in insurance per paycheck, that's steep. OC's projected increase normally is 3%. OC's is telling us anywhere between 3 and 5 on all the services that we get through OC's. The cost of cybersecurity protection and insurance. We spoke about cyber protection last year, and I made a recommendation for the middle plan. I thought that was a safe bet. Based on what happened in Suffolk County, I think we need the deluxe plan, because student data, staff data, there's the price tag on that, if you get out there, is you'll pay more. Our insurance covers about $250,000 in cybersecurity impact. The county was in the millions of dollars. So we need to purchase probably additional insurance for cybersecurity. Concerns regarding the cost of service incoming kindergarten students. Our current pre-K students are going without services. Many of them have been identified, which I value identifying them early, even if there are no service providers, because that means we can budget knowing what they need coming in as kindergarten, speech services, OT services, PT services. These kids are not getting those services, so that's going to have an impact on our staffing for next year, if we can even meet that staffing, because the shortage for related service providers is not just because of the count, it's because they're not out here. New math curriculum is on the principal's mind in part of her goal setting with the shared decision making. Superintendent search, this is what caused some reporters out there, but we paid about $20,000 6 years ago for a superintendent search, so I figured that had to be put in the budget because my anticipated retirement is in July of 2024. And then your high school tuition is a gamble. We keep managing month to month right now. We just lost another special ed student to actually disconnected. And that was one of the higher priced students, so that's gonna help us a little bit. And we haven't had any new students enroll yet for the high school. January. I do want to talk a little bit about the shortage of staff that's not out there. But in general, we try to post for substitutes in every area to no avail. That's costing this district in overtime where you have staff for overtime. We have an event going out this Saturday, and we need a bus driver. And you can't require it for something that's an extra, but you can't tax people. The same people are being taxed constantly. So I don't know what the answer is there, but without substitutes in place, it's a burden on our current staff. After revolving door and administrative assistants, I thank the board, we all do, profusely for raising the salaries. We have landed on 3 individuals that are just dynamite. They're parents, they're committed, they're smart, and yet at the same time, they're showing initiative and dedication. And that would not have been possible to find those individuals had we not raised the salary. So our teacher assistants continue to fill in for our teachers who are absent when subs are not available. I don't know what we read about them. They're here early in the morning. They stay till 4 o'clock until the last student is home safe. As I said, bus drivers work overtime daily. They cover in 3 lunch periods. They provide the sports bus. Usually, in other school districts, you have somebody who'd be part-time just to do the sports bus. Here, it's our full-time drivers that fill in. And they provide the late bus for the students at the high school. Our administrative team, I can't say enough about. We're completely new in the 6 years I've been here. And we need to invest in the leadership here in order to keep them. Yes, salary is one thing, but it's also the professional development, the support for conferences that they attend, the support for initiatives that they want to see, the professional development, extra days, restorative practices. This is what keeps leaders going, is the ability to keep moving that truck. So we thank you for your support on that, but it is something that, again, our administrators are wearing multiple hats, available on weekends. One student crisis can take them completely off task for 2 days easily, and they still have observations to do and complete, so they're taxed. Our teachers are indicating the needs for professional development to our administrators. They love it when they get an opportunity to meet professionally with outside consultants. And they are also indicating the needs of our students are greater than ever before, social, emotionally, academically. We saw that at Christmas time with a number of families that really our staff pitched in and helped with the first kids had at Christmas. I tell you all of this because it can't be sustained. We can't continue to keep operating this way. All the challenges aside, we need to look really hard at this budget if we want to keep moving this district forward. And I believe we all want to keep moving this district forward, from our staff to our board to the administrators to even the bus drivers and the custodians. Just saw the building shine. They love the ability to come in here over the break and have nobody else in the building, no interruptions. We gave them floating holidays rather than the state and federal mandated holidays. Who wouldn't want to take 4 days off when they want to and have the building to clean and prepare the way they have for our staff and for our students? So a lot to digest, and I thought that we take advantage of tonight to start a discussion, an actual dialogue back and forth as we go into budget season. Mike, it will be in district on Thursday. He plans to come down at least, hopefully once a month or every other week for payroll. Questions? Anything I missed?
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
And thank you guys, and you're the volunteers here, and no tough feat. I am really proud of where we've come over the last 6 years. I really am. I just think this one is going to be a really challenging year for everybody. Really, last slide. We go back to the enrollment. Barbara asked to see 10 years worth. Barbara, we can't go back 10 years because we didn't have 4 dots. What goes back to what, Julie?
It goes back to 16, I believe.
16. So we'll try to give you.
There is history, though. I just spoke to Jen today, so I'm going to help her tomorrow with that.
So we're going to try to go back 10 years on enrollment. One of the giveaways is your number of sections. So I'm gonna, we have traditionally run 4 to 3 sections in every grade, and it varies from year to year. So what we did for this budget is we more or less rolled it forward. So we checked on our pre-K students that are not with us at the SYA building, and there's about 3 students that are out there in private pre-K. So we're going to roll 54 students over to our kindergarten. Okay, that would keep the 3 sections that we currently have. You roll over the 62 kindergartners, and you could go with 3 sections for next year for first grade. The first graders roll over 67. We were keeping that at 4 sections.
No, bigger.
There you go. I'm just trying to make that bottom line. There you go.
That's where you can scroll. We just need to be able to.
And you can see the I think there's a sorry, Julie, I think on the first grade that should be 20.6 if you check my math, Josh, really quickly.
I can't even read it.
And it's 3 sections, 62 students. I think my math is correct.
That's close.
So the first grade or kindergarten?
First grade.
The 16.75 right now?
Is it
20.6.
Is it 20.6?
Yes.
For kindergarten, though, right?
That's 20.6 was
That's first grade.
kindergarten.
Kindergarten.
There's no PTAs in first, second.
Kindergarten first.
Third grade is 4 sections. Fourth grade is 4 sections. Fifth grade goes to 3 sections, because fourth grade was at 3 sections this year. And then your sixth grade is 4 sections, and your seventh grade is 3 sections, and your eighth grade is 4 sections. This will be going from 10 sections to 11 sections for the junior high, which will create a whole new schedule for Mr. to achieve. But as you see, it keeps the sections to 19, 18, 19, with the 0 net. So you lose 2, you gain 2. No, staffing wise, you stay the same. And that's current, that's today.
And you're looking at scheduling the staff and moving more and stuff like that?
That will be the building administration, and, contractually wise, we have to let them know by what, June?
June 15th.
And then your high school, I added 10. Last year I recommended adding 10, I think we went with
What's our
6.
graduating class this year?
The graduating class this year is very similar to the group coming in. It's like 81 off the top of my
And
head.
81 going out?
79 going in and 81 coming out, I think.
Same.
Very, very similar number.
We were way under that estimate last year once we found out how many were going to high school, so you increased the estimate to 10.
No, we wanted to go to 10, we reduced it to 6.
But the point is it turned out to be a lot more than
Yes.
6. I think that's an important
Yes.
point too.
Yeah.
You try to hedge a little bit, but when you're way under budget-wise, it can be a problem, so.
The only reason why we're okay is because the special ed numbers didn't go to where we thought they would. And they're a higher price student, so that's helping us. As long as we stay under $1 million a month, we'll be okay. And our bills are scrutinized, and they come in by special ed and by my office.
Your class size is pretty much stable. Because in most cases, it's lower than this year, next year. What concerns me is the kindergarten and pre-K. That's a lot of kids.
If you look at,
Section.
it's the early childhood, it's your kindergarten.
They should be the lower ones, and I feel more comfortable with the class size being larger in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade than in pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade. Although first grade looks fine.
But as I'm looking at the sections, I don't think you can really adjust any if we're trying to keep the class
I
at 25 or less.
understand.
There's no.
And the funny thing about those middle school sections is that they don't necessarily equate to teacher numbers, right? Because they're distributed in a different
I know they're
way.
all over the place, but again, if you start off with the idea that you want to keep your lower class sizes in your primary and elementary, then that's another way of looking at it as you get to the middle school level.
And don't forget, you have your teacher assistants in kindergarten and first grade. So.
I understand, right? Again, the lower the class size, the lower number you're going to get for that. And the other thing is that most middle school class sizes are around, the average in the nation is around 28 to 30 kids. So here so that may be something to look at as we go through this process.
The number of new students moving in, I think our largest was 7th grade this year? Besides the high school.
I think it was 6th or 7th grade.
6th, 7th grade.
Next year, 8th grade looks like it's the only one where you could possibly go down to 3 sections, right?
Yeah, but that was a tough one,
Yeah,
like
but-
you said. It doesn't-
Because you have that.
Can't equate it.
No, I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
it's
because you're
weird.
looking at the numbers. it
Like
looks
those class
they
sizes
have
probably,
They're probably.
that's straight
22,
average,
23.
it won't really.
Yeah.
play that way.
29.
Most of them will be around the 20s, and you have a couple up near 30.
Yeah. And then you might have one small one, right, the way
Right.
it plays out, just as you shuffle them up.
You need to say enrollment doesn't
Gotta
help
start
us.
from somewhere.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our administrators and our business official, worked very hard to put together a budget that will now be reviewed by a second set of eyes, and then we will be ready for our budget workshop 1, which I'm recommending either you do at the regular board meeting on the 17th, or next Tuesday, and another budget workshop, but I don't want to get behind. I don't want February to be the first budget workshop.
No, I think maybe,
Do you have a calendar for us?
There's one, actually, a revised one, letter D on here, so I can pull it up on here.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Julie. And the only change, the reason why you have a budget calendar there is because of the adoption deadline. New York State changed theirs to April 20th.
That's your birthday? Happy birthday.
Correct, Julie? Is that the change that was made?
No, actually, the change that was made was the revote.
No, revote.
The revote was
Then
what
why do we
actually,
still have no date yet set for the adoption deadline? Did they not make that deadline yet?
it's April 20th.
It is April 20th. So
Yeah.
You can say that, you can take that out, no date set yet.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so what they changed was the revote?
The revote was the actual change.
About January? Hold on.
so on our meeting of the 17th, Deb, are we gonna have any major presentations or anything like that we have to go in on that one?
Let me take a look. Julie has,
Started already.
has it started already?
Budget workshop will be February 7th, number 2, this is number 1 today.
Right, the next one we have would be on February 7th.
But we
We
might
don't have anything for the January 17th meeting. We don't have anything planned for that, for a budget.
So if we keep the 17th meeting short in other respects, we could have a regular meeting and first budget.
You could
workshop
do
if we
something
wanted,
else there if
Yes.
you wanted to.
right?
Would
You
be
have a
ready by
couple?
then?
I have I have the agenda started for the 17th. There's not a lot of stuff on it right now.
Will you be ready by
Mike,
the 17th?
Mike Bills will be ready by the 17th.
Okay.
Make a lot of agenda.
I think the sooner we get it out there, the public,
Yeah.
the better. So if we can do it on the 7th.
The budget,
There's not a lot on there.
yeah, no, it's basically personnel, you're going to.
You could do a consent agenda if you want quick, and then do a budget if you wanted to after.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we just keep that regular meeting not too busy.
It's there if you want to take a peek at it. so.
Yeah. And I know we've asked the student council to come at every meeting. Is this something that, should we ask them to not come that time, just to leave more time for the budget, or their presentations aren't that long? So we should- yeah.
Who's coming?
The Student
Oh, student
council.
council, yeah.
Yeah.
And they usually come right after we do the pledge for early, so.
Yeah.
They're lazy, but it could be nice, if they want to stick with budget, they can.
A little economics.
That's all economics.
Yeah.
By the way, we have 2 positive announcements for you. We have 2 new members to our Springs family. Is it 2 girls?
A boy and a
A
girl.
boy.
Who had a boy and a girl? Who had babies?
Yep.
Melissa Dexter.
Dexter had a boy, and Caitlin
Caitlin Cangelozzi had a girl.
had a girl. Everybody's good.
Yeah, happy and healthy.
Nice to hear.
Yes. Right, they're still both.
And on that positive note,
So, all right, so we'll adjust the calendar then to have our first, today, the first real meeting will be at the January 17th.
And you'll send the budget beforehand, I'm sure.
yes. I'll try to get that to you the Thursday before. Okay, I'll speak to Mike about that one.
Okay, so LTV, if there are any calls now with any questions about the budget discussion that we've just had, or the changes to the meeting going forward, you can take a call.
We have no callers at this time.
Anyone in the audience have a question?
Was that everything, Deb? Because I think you had, no, nothing
there another
else?
slide?
No, that's it. I was just checking it.
That's
Okay.
it.
So, Pat, you have a question?
Yes, I do. So the open house is tonight. There was confusion in the beginning about whether it's 6th to 8th or 9th
You
to 8th.
mean open gym?
Open gym,
Yeah.
6th to 8th to 8th grade.
Yeah, all that went out to parents and.
I know,
Okay.
there was confusion tonight, there's gonna be another one next week, what is it, twice a
There's gonna
week?
be one on
Once a
Friday.
week.
One on Friday,
Mhm.
so the question that come up on Friday.
Mhm.
How does the board feel having outside the community, just 6th to 8th grade in there? What do you want to wait till inside the community?
Yeah. You know, just open the door for heartache. You open it outside the community.
So,
It should be for our school community, not for outside.
so 6th to 8th grade?
6th or 8th grade without kids from East Hampton or any other place.
What about the ages of the kids in the community?
I think
The question was, there was 4 ninth graders here tonight that live in Springs.
I think you limited to 8th graders, I'm sorry, but that's how I feel.
Okay.
You got, because we have control of those kids. And then in high school, we don't. So if something were to happen with high school kids, then it become a high school issue, not our issue. Mom, based on that, Deb, or?
No, I know that the high school has an open gym, but I think the problem is the students getting there, right?
Well, again, when you have an open house, you're gonna take that into consideration anyway, but usually if you have a community school open night for games or whatever, you don't wanna bring in outside kids, because a lot of kids have friends from East Hampton they'll wanna bring in. And then you don't have the kind of control that you would have, you know, your kids and you know their parents.
There's also a big age and size difference between a 6th grader and a 9th grader or a 10th grader. I would be a little concerned about injury because it's very physical,
Yes.
you know, the activities are physical. That's something to consider.
And is it a staff volunteer or is it
They're getting paid, chaperones, staff chaperones only, yep.
staff chaperones paid, and how many do we have in there?
Right, tonight we had 7 plus a security guard, 6 plus a security guard. Friday we had 1 extra.
Our kids here will listen to the staff here rather than kids from the outside. That's been my experience. Just don't want to mix it.
So
I'm talking for, that's what I'm asking. I know you're in a predicament, and that's why it's all out for discussion.
I don't know if that was a predicament.
Well, it wasn't.
No, but it brings up a good point. It brings up a good
It
point.
brings it to an unanswered question.
We had said it 6 to 8 for those exact reasons what Tim just
Okay,
stated. It was more contained, it was more manageable. It was, you know, just kind of troubleshooting. So that's why we did it. And then there was this little kink tonight, and we dealt with it tonight. But going forward, I'm more than comfortable keeping it 6th or 8th grade. As long as everybody's comfortable with
They
that.
might think, oh, open gym, but it's really not open gym, it's just
Right.
open for current.
Correct.
students.
So maybe we'll call it something else.
Yeah.
It's a school community activity.
Right.
Yes.
It's a spring
Yeah.
school.
And also paying staff members to be there, and there's 7 of them,
And a security guard.
it's close to $800 a night.
No,
What do we pay
$35 an hour.
per person? 5 hours, 2 hours, right?
Yeah,
70 hours.
So 7 times 7 is $500.
yeah, $500, yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
$1,000 a week.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Where are the funds coming from?
But till March, and it's
A
coming
grant.
from a grant,
Mhm.
Fred Deal.
Bullet aid.
Well, okay, it's paying for this, okay.
This is for the movement in New York for social and emotional program development. It's exactly what we're talking about. This was just an easy,
Yeah.
this is your call too. This wasn't something that, I mean.
You know, the kids asked for it, and so did the
Right.
parents.
And the parents did,
And,
We have the facility now. so-
yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think it's a great idea. I'm just, one of the things is,
And it's
where's the
not
money
costing
coming
anyone.
from?
Yeah,
Are we gonna have a
and you're
situation?
right, it wasn't discussed.
It wasn't
It
discussed in the
wasn't
board
discussed. It
Yeah,
wasn't.
it was not. And I'm sorry, not about that. I think it's a great idea, but it's a school, it's a school district. And we should know about it. I went to Bob, was surprised too.
Understood.
Yeah, no, I didn't know what was going on. Yeah, that's.
We can't, you expect us, we communicate with you. We expect communication from you, we expect communication from us. Right?
Of course, yeah, it's two-way street.
And you just follow what you were told to do.
I told her to go ahead and do the
Right.
program because
Right,
it's a short window.
right, I
January
understand
to
that.
March.
One week wouldn't have made a difference. We're having a meeting tonight.
Well, no, just that little heads up.
Yeah, but one night would have made a difference. If we knew we were meeting tonight, we could have discussed it early in the meeting, and it'd be Friday. Would have been one night.
Right, but it's not something we have to vote on, actually.
No, but we
No.
just have to be aware of.
Right, just, you know,
Because we're not using taxpayers' money, we're using grant money.
Right.
Well, it was in the update, it was found.
So LTV, if we don't have any calls coming in at this time, and if we're all done wrapped up here, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Second. All in
No, you
favor?
didn't.
Aye.
It went out and.